All right, we are going to get started because we like to be on time here, and I'm sure other people will be joining us in just a moment. You know where the restrooms are, you know where the drinks are. Please help yourself, and we're going to get started. I'm going to bring this down and let me just get organized for a moment. Okay, welcome to this month's Feed Your Mind series program. Today we are going to be talking. The title of our session today is Movement-Based Play Therapy, using body and mind to help young people thrive. Good afternoon. I'm Wendy Singer, Executive Director for No Shame on You. And on behalf of our board of directors, staff, and volunteers, I warmly welcome you to today's program. No Shame on You, if you're new to us, is dedicated to reshaping attitudes about mental health, elevating conversations, and disarming stigma. We support young people as well as those who support them with tools to understand, talk about, and respond to mental health challenges. We fulfill our mission through comprehensive community outreach programs, workshops, teen programs, free resources, and a robust online presence with over 120,000 social media followers with the bulk on Facebook. So please follow us. We partner with organizations throughout the Chicagoland area and across the country and are recognized for our inclusive, consistent, and responsive programming for people of all backgrounds. I'd like to express our gratitude to our sponsors displayed in the pre-roll slideshow at the beginning of the program. And before I introduce our speaker, we will hold a Q&A at the end of the session. But if you have questions during the session, we also are, we also can stop and answer those as well. So please submit your questions directly to me, Wendy Singer at No Shame on You, and I will address as many questions as time permits and sometimes lump things together and all those sorts of things. It's now my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Mike Gortowski is a licensed clinical professional counselor who earned his Master's of Arts in Clinical Mental Health Counseling and a Master of Science in Sport and Human Performance from Adler University. Mike specializes in working with children and adolescents experiencing anxiety, depression, emotional regulation issues, trauma, and transitional and relationship issues. His clinical experiences include um, communicating with clients through InMotion therapy, directive and non-directive play therapy, narrative therapy, art therapy, music therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and reality therapy. In addition to his role as a therapist at True Mind and Body, he is also the director of InMotion therapy at one of their arms, the Art of Wellbeing. And just one more thing, because he has a very extensive background. I don't want you to miss a beat. In addition to counseling, Mike is also an experienced mental health performance consultant. Through his work, he helps his clients pursue excellence in sports, exercise, and career through mental skills conditioning. Mike has experience working with clients of all ages and sports backgrounds, from college tennis to youth soccer, and is driven by the goal of helping his clients discover the best version of themselves. And I just want to thank True Mind Body for partnering us today, and Lauren Silverman, who is a dear friend of No Shame on You's, giving her a shout out because she is the mayor of the mental health community and hooks us up with everybody. So thank you. Mike, take it away.
I can echo that of Lauren being the mayor, but thank you so much for that introduction. I've never heard it all set out in that way before. It was like you turned a glass of water there. Hey everybody, hi. My name is Mike Gortowski. I am the InMotion program director over at the Art of Wellbeing. Art of Wellbeing is a practice in Northbrook, Illinois that we specialize in a lot of experiential therapies. In our work with working with kids, we've really come to realize and appreciate the role that movement has with all of our clientele. No matter what type of play therapy, experiential therapy, expressive therapy that we were doing, we always found our clients getting up, wanting to run around, move their bodies, and express themselves through movement. And it didn't take long for us to realize that there was something to that, that with this form of expression, we can do a lot with the therapeutic process. So we took our boss's advice, and by bosses, I mean our child and adolescents clients, and we really started thinking about what play therapy was and how we could design something that's going to be a little bit more attuned with them. So, for those of you that work with kids and work within more traditional play therapy spaces, you kind of get a picture of what play therapy can look like and what the space looks like. So you'll have the sand trays and the puppets and all the fun artwork that kids can really utilize to express and process their emotions. What we've done at Art of Wellbeing through our InMotion program is we've kind of taken that idea and done a little twist with it. So I will show you with this vision of what play therapy can be in your mind. I'll show you what we've done with our spaces. And what we've done is we've taken out some of the sand trays and the puppets, and we added basketball movement spaces. We added sensory rooms for kids to really get out there and activate their bodies. Um, in the summer times, and I know we're in the Chicagoland area, it's about 8 months out of the year. On a good year, you can see me, and don't worry, that's not a client, that's a plant. Uh, we can go outside and toss the ball around while we're doing some more traditional play therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy type approaches. And then you can also see what we've done with our space with the soccer court as well. Um, but I think with us kind of coming to terms with kids really needing to get and move around, we had to figure out, okay, why does this matter? Why does movement matter to our clientele? And not just our clientele, but just human beings in general. And I think all of us have had moments in our life where, for one reason or another, and maybe we don't fully realize it, we go, we got to get up and move our bodies. Whether it's waking up in the morning knowing you have a long day and going for a walk, or whether it's going and meeting up with friends for yoga, we all, in some intrinsic way, understand why movement matters. And we don't always take a step back and try to understand why. And lucky for us, there's tons of research out there that actually tells us why movement matters. And it always boils down to two kind of essential concepts here, which is both the brain and the nervous system connection to movement. So with, a lot of neuroscience studies show that increased movements consistently shows that there's increased levels of brain derived neurotrophic factor. Uh, for the sake for your sake and mine, I will just call it BDNF from now on. But what BDNF is it's a essential protein for healthy brain functioning. So what it does when it's introduced to our brains, it supports the growth and plasticity of the neurons. Once those neurons are kind of supercharged by this protein, BDNF, it leads to an improved ability to learn. Emotional regulation becomes easier, and actually resiliency to stress is increased. Uh, it's basically like a super highway for our brain. And when we add the idea that the neuroplasticity and the neurofeedback loops in our brain become faster and stronger, it actually increases the functioning and the communication between our amygdala, which is the stress center of our brain, and the prefrontal cortex, which is the regulation center of our brain. With that communication increased, we can regulate our emotions a lot easier. So next time that you get up and you go, I don't know why, but I need a walk right now, your body is telling you something. and and you should sometimes listen to it and take that walk, and that's the actual science behind it. Um, but it's not just the brain part of this connection. It's also, we're talking nervous system here too. Uh, I Everyone at our practice absolutely adores the work of Stephen Porges, and I don't know if who here is familiar with his work, but he is most well known for his polyvagal theory, which is basically it's the way that our bodies interact with our environment and our world around us. So through this polyvagal theory, what Stephen Porges has come to realize is that a vast majority of the things that we see in our world is not received cognitively, it's actually received neuroceptively. We always talk about fight or flight, or some people talk about freeze states.
Interesting.
This happens so quickly that a lot of times we don't have time to consciously think about, oh, do we have a question here? Oh, sorry. Consciously think about some of our behaviors. This, when we are in this fight or flight state, our body is constantly shifting between different modes of regulation. So rhythmic movement has actually been shown to send cues of safety to our nervous system to help us regulate our emotions. So by going out on that walk and you have that rhythmic movement of the walk, you are jumping from a sympathetic nervous system state that is designed to see the threats in our world and trying to regulate it back to a social engagement state in which the world is safe. And if we can all think back on times in which we are nervous, it makes sense, right? I mean, thanks to the power of video, you guys cannot see the lower half of my body in which I am bouncing my leg up and down right now. I'm not doing it consciously. I am doing it because that movement is actually regulating my emotions and trying to calm the nervous system down. Movement has also been shown to be extremely helpful when
Mike,
working.
Mike,
Yep,
I just realized something. You
sure.
you probably have some slides to go along with this, and the slides are not being shared right now.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Is it not being shared?
No, but you're so mesmerizing that I didn't realize it at this moment.
Okay,
So
hang on
fear
one
not.
second.
So fear not.
Take two.
No, just start where you
Great.
are.
Yeah,
Great.
no.
I was thinking it was the intro and I was absorbed, but then I realized that I don't see the slides and I'm thinking you
Oh,
have
so
it.
I was even talking about our movement spaces and I was actually showing everybody, but they weren't seeing it.
All right, let's see them.
All right, here we go. I'll just do a speed through.
There.
Ta-da.
Yes, but you want to hit, we're seeing the bars on the top, which is not a giant deal, but if you could share it.
Let's do it right. Let's do it right.
There we go. And then hit slideshow. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah?
Perfect.
All right. Bzzz, rewind. These are our movement spaces. I'll just fly through them
Oh my God, gorgeous.
so
Yes, we need to
everybody
see
could
those.
see. Okay. I'm glad I was painting a picture, but it doesn't
The
do it
picture
justice.
was painted. Do not worry. Fear not.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to where we were then. Thank you for telling me.
Of course.
um, yes, the research with movement and trauma specifically is quite extensive. I mentioned Stephen Porges before. Previously when talking about polyvagal, he is probably within the polyvagal world most well known for his safe and sound practice, in which he takes the somatic experience of listening to music and introducing it with people that have experienced very intense trauma, more specifically within like war zones growing up. And what he found is the person that experienced the trauma's ability to access the thought of that trauma is extremely touchy. Can't stay in that moment for long. But when introducing movement, and music, that somatic experience actually calms down uh, their nervous system to the point in which they can actually access and process that emotion. Um, this builds huge sense of agency with people that feel like the outside world is dangerous for good reason. Um, when we involve movement with kids specifically, it helps give them this safe feeling of control and mastery, and is great use of movement within the therapeutic process is a great way to build up their ability to view the world as a safe place. Um, and all of it's also extremely great for the just development of a young brain. I know we've been talking a lot of just humans in general, but for kids specifically, they view the world through a very sensory motor lens. We know that all the way the days back of Piaget, right? So when we introduce movements, what we are doing is we are helping kids understand the world from a safe place and then make it safe to kind of go out there and be a little dangerous, knowing that they can come back and regulate their emotions through that movement. One of my favorite stories with this, and I always bring it back, is you know when we suppress natural movement, there's great increases in anxiety and dysregulation. And million years ago, I used to have a client that had a hard time sitting in class. uh, Impulse control was pretty low, and dysregulation happened often. And after a couple of weeks of him absolutely kicking my butt in soccer, we sat down and he said, I asked him what was going on in school, and he was honest and he was ready to talk about it. And he said, uh, in a very kid way, basically, it's unfair that I get yelled at for wanting to get up and move around when I see my teacher get up and move around during class every 10 minutes. I don't understand. And it was one of those moments that was extremely insightful, and I'll never forget, because I talked with the teacher a month later, and she laughed and she said, "Oh my gosh, he's so right." The other day, I got up to go get something while the kids were taking a quiz. Didn't even know what I got up to get. I think I just wanted to stand up. And through that, we were able to come up with a plan to help the kid, help my client be able to regulate his emotions through movement during class. That just made the experience much easier for both him, and his teacher was pretty appreciative as well. um, so now that we know what why movement matters to us as human beings, let's talk a little bit about movement-based play therapy. Um, and really, what it boils down to is some really core principles that we can always go back to. Movement-based play therapy is very holistic. We can always implement things, as clinicians, if those of you that are listening that are clinicians, we can always implement this stuff with some of our already built practice that we do with kids. And as long as we stick with some of these core principles, we can always add and subtract things that we think are working. It's very flexible with this type of kiddo that's coming in and working with us. Really, at its core, it's movement as creativity, motion as a healing force. We don't always have to verbalize our emotions, and we can do it through play and motion often. Um, the nonverbal expression of emotions, I think, is things that we see a lot when working with kids. Uh, I think one of the biggest pitfalls when talking with other clinicians is hearing the expression, "Oh, they just don't say anything." And I always want to correct and say, well, no, they don't verbalize anything. They're always saying something. With movement, we have another communication device in which a kid can express themselves, and we don't have to rely on the verbalization of a kiddo that's having a hard time coming to terms with what's going on within themselves, let alone expressing it to the outside world. Um, with that integration of the mind and body, we can also always rely on, we don't have to constantly listen to cognitions or be on the lookout for cognitions. Kids will be saying things with their body and with their movement that is just as helpful. We can tell if a kid is in a freeze state or if they're in a mobilized state, and help them come to terms with what that is doing to their body, and in terms how it's making their mind process the outside world. Um, Back in the same vein, when uh, using the symbolism and meaning making of that movement can be just as powerful as talking about an actual event itself. When we use movement, we don't necessarily have to rely on something scary, something sad, something frustrating that happened that day. We can now move it into the movement and help the kid process it in the moment, rather than going back and feeling the shame of a mistake that some emotion made them make. Um, and yeah, it's really eclectic. It can be both client centered and it can be directive. Some of our more older kids that come in, it may not be the most useful thing to do a more skill based, skill learning directive approach. Sometimes something as the reciprocity and connection of just throwing a ball back and forth about talking about your day is just as useful as, let's play this game that's going to be designed to help us understand emotional regulation or impulse control. Um, when kids come in and they're trying to, them and their families are trying to figure out what's going on around them, oftentimes we see the same pattern a lot, and usually what it comes down to is some form of emotional regulation, uh, social emotional learning that's needed, um, the self concept of the client, and the low confidence needs to be improved a little bit, and just some cognitive flexibility. Luckily, movement helps kids thrive in all of these subjects, and we can design a session to help in all of these facets. Um, when a kid is moving, they are doing what their body wants them to do when they are in certain nervous system states. If they are in what we consider a fight or flight or mobilized sympathetic state, they are looking to discharge their energy. And luckily, one of the greatest ways to regulate that emotion is through movement. Uh, and the same goes to when we're feeling a little low, when we're feeling a little down. We can activate our free state and slowly and in a soothing fashion kind of get us out of that shutdown through calming movements. Activities like jumping, crawling, swinging, drumming, yoga breathing regulate that autonomic nervous system in a natural way that the body is begging to be soothed with. Um, same with the co-regulating nature of movement. I'm going to do a little humble brag here. I actually had the privilege to be interviewed for an article in Women's Health magazine about this very subject of what movement can do when we experience trauma or loss. And it was a article about running clubs that are sprouting up across the country for people experiencing grief. And as much of an honor as it was to be interviewed for that piece, I think the coolest part was seeing different experts across the country all agree on two things. One, the movement piece and what it did to regulate and show us and show our bodies that the world is safe, but also what co-regulation can do, what groups of people can do to strengthen our trust and the attachment to the world around us. That kind of synchronous movement when dealing with kids, when working with kids, it can increase that cooperation and that empathy that sometimes some of our younger pre 8-year-old kids can really be lacking and use some help with. Um, One of the coolest things, and I love the work of uh, of Robin Lilly, Robin Veely, sorry, that work that focuses primarily on mastery with kids and athletes. And what she found is that when kids can master something small and build from that, they can develop huge levels of self-efficacy, which is extremely useful for stress resilience. Uh, I get to see it. I have the privilege to see it every day when we are in our sensory room. And I work with kids on practicing what we call safe danger, right? We have a padded sensory room in which they get to, in a safe manner, really experiment with what it feels like to be scared by swinging on the swing, our bungee swing, or trying to climb a really high rope for them. Uh, and what you notice is when they achieve this goal, when they overcome this somatic experience, they are so excited and they jump up and down, and they've really developed this new skill of how to walk towards that feeling in our bodies and not run away from it. Um, and also just the cognitive development aspect of how we can help kids with the movement. I said that story about of my client at school, just the movement breaks that we can do to help improve just our kids achievement drive, and the way that they can sit with an emotion and not have to act out, use that emotion as an appropriate way to dispel some of this anxious feeling or down feeling, and it doesn't come out in any sort of necessarily disruptive behavior in the class. Okay, so now the fun part. Um, I don't know if we want to open it up for everybody, or I can just go through these slides, and if anybody wants to jump in. But what I've added here is just some movement-based techniques that can be really practical interventions for whatever your role is in a child's life, whether it's in the therapeutic process, whether we're teachers dealing with the sometimes jungle of a bunch of kids in one area trying to get all their needs met, or if we're parents at home that have questions about how we can use play and movement to regulate some of our kids and help them with some of the skill building that we're talking about. Oh shoot. Um, Movement, like in the previous slide, could be great for regulating emotions. And for years, decades, there has been plenty of techniques that help with regulation in kids. And one of my favorite ones for the tiny kiddos is they're called animal walks. And what animal walks are, they are helping kids somatically understand what it feels like to be calm, what it feels like to be energetic, what it feels like to be slow. And through that awareness, they can then pendulate what certain situations uh, make them feel like and how that makes them behave throughout their day. So, especially some of those tinier kiddos, it's great uh, running around the office as a squirrel and bringing the subconscious conscious. What is a squirrel like? How does a squirrel feel when it's running around? Release that energy. Now can the squirrel become a sloth and move slowly along the room? Through this pendulation of back and forth, they're understanding not just the emotions, but the cognitions attached to some of these movements. And then can, when we talk with parents as a parent, if we play this game and we see our kid being the squirrel, we can ask them if this is the right situation to be the squirrel. maybe this is a sloth situation. Um, with the equipment that we have at our practice, it's extremely, we have a lot more room to kind of take some of these concepts and expand them. So in the basketball court, it's always great to play a game like this. We got a game called slow ball, fastball, in which what is it like to play really, really, really fast? And then what is it like to slow it down? And is there a space in the middle that can actually get a task done that's going to be the best tool for whatever we're doing in life? Um, and that just brings us to the somatic awareness of some of these things. A lot of polyvagal informed therapies, uh, they utilize body scans a lot. And for those of you that have used certain techniques like progressive muscle relaxation, this is in the same vein. When we feel a certain feeling, we often feel it in certain parts of our body. uh, we are so focused on that one part of our body that we don't realize how the rest of our body is feeling at times. If kids are able to play games that really help them understand where they're feeling some of the somatic experience in their body, and we use movement to either dispel and or listen to or hug or run away from, we can then understand how some of those bodily sensations are communicating to our brain of what to do in certain situations. I know a lot of us really like using some breathing techniques. And if your situation, if your experience is like mine when working with some kids, you can get a pretty aggressive eye roll sometimes when talking about how helpful breath is, even though it's true. So using this style of play or certain techniques in a playroom, we can talk about breath through movement and how it helps. The amount of eye rolls that I get from young boys that think that breath isn't important, but then I show them a video of LeBron James taking a breath before a free throw, and they, due to them learning through modeling, do it every time that we shoot a free throw. You can always use that movement, that sympathetic activation of playing a game. And then when it's time to settle down before shooting a free throw, take that deep breath. That those are ways that we can use this somatic awareness when playing a game. And then clocking, how does it feel after we took that breath? It's funny how just that slow breath taps into the parasympathetic system, calms our body down. And because LeBron James did it on TV, it's way cooler than Mike saying, let's do some box breathing. um, I think connection, back to the co-regulation piece, movement and connection is the key with a lot of kids dealing with social emotional issues. Uh, I'm sure a lot of us have heard of different mirroring and movement games. One game that I really, really love to play in our sensory room is Floor is Lava, and more specifically, Social Floor is Lava, in which we set up a Floor is Lava course around our building. And we have to get from one end of the room to the other. And we have to work as a team. And the kid can jump back and forth between all the spaces. But the problem is, I'm the one that has to put the key spot that's going to help them to get from one thing to the other. And we play games in which the more that we feel connected as a group, the closer that I put the jumping rock to get over the lava. So something as simple as them telling me a story and me looking down. And then if they can identify that and I look up and they tell me a different story and they ask me questions about my day and I bring the lava rock over to them, just that connection and learning through the movement is an extremely effective way. Instead of talking about social skills, with a worksheet, doing it in the motion through an activity is extremely helpful and fun for kids. Movement is expressive, right? And there's a lot of games, show me a story, in which kids that do not want to verbalize what's going on oftentimes are perceived as not doing well in therapy. Luckily, we have movement to have them show us a story of what's going on in life and how to process it. One of my favorite games that I can take no credit for making is a game that a client invented called Clockwork. Uh, this client was one of my I don't knowers, and I'm sure those of us that have worked with kids in the past have had a bunch of, hey, how's your day? I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I don't know. Through movement, this person doesn't have to tell me how their day was. They can show me. So we designed a game called Clockwork, where very, very energetic kid loved running in circles, just absolutely loved running in circles. And whenever something big would come up, he would not want to tell me, but he'd love to show me. And we played this game in which I asked yes or no questions. If it was a true statement that I asked, he would have to run clockwise. And if it was false, he would have to run counterclockwise. The more true that my statement was, he had to run faster. And the more false it was, he had to run faster in the other direction. And one of the most fun parts of using movement for this client to express himself is once he got comfortable processing what happened and communicating it, his window of tolerance went up. And there'd be times where I would get it completely wrong, bad guesser. And he would stop running and he'd look at me and he'd go, "You're so wrong. Can I just tell you what happened?" I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess you have to tell me what happened and we can talk about it. So using movement in that way to really lower or raise distress tolerance can be extremely helpful when trying to get some more expressive activities going. Before we open it up to Q&A fully, I just wanted to just throw some tips out there for everyone. I think one of the key things to always consider when working with a kid through movement is what are their movement needs. Just because they aren't verbalizing anything doesn't mean that we can't clock and act accordingly to what their behavior is telling us. In the polyvagal world, there is this term that everyone always uses that's your state dictates your story. So if we see a kid with a very elevated mobilized state, they're telling us a story, and that story is in their head, and that's how they view the world. So if we just follow and attune with the needs that the movement is telling us, we can always shift these nervous system states and get back to that social engagement state in which connection follows. That's why we can always use co-movement before co-regulation. How do we use movement together to be on the same page and come down together? And through that connection, we can co-regulate. We can always use movement intentionally. It's not random. If we see a hyper aroused kid, we can do more grounding and heavy work movements. If they're a little down, a little hypo aroused, how do we activate? What are some activities that we can do to get them back into that social engagement system? With that, we can build safety and predictability. How do we make it clear of when we start and stop? How do we ensure that the space is safe? How much padding do we need for certain activities? And how do we be consistent? And then, of course, how do we track these outcomes? When do we see the changes in regulation and which strategies work? And how do we take these lessons we learn and make it so it's doable outside of the therapy space? With that, in the regulation, the engagement, the confidence will build, and the behavior. And yeah, if you would like to open it up to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Mike. Why don't you stop sharing so that will come
Sure.
down.
I'm curious, Mike, if maybe it would be helpful for some of the participants or future viewers of this presentation, if you can just share a little bit about the parent engagement, because I know what we have is not only do we treat the kiddos, but we also have a mandatory or required parent session. So how would you explain these types of situations?
Mike, before you go, click the red stop share button towards the top.
Okay.
Then
Is
we're
it,
perfect. You're perfect. Go
did you
ahead.
think that you'd have to be an IT person for me today as well? Is
Oh
that?
my gosh. We do it all here at Shame on You, so don't worry.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, Lauren. So the question was, how do we get parents involved in the process?
Yeah, especially like buying in, because I would think that, right? So some of these kids are like, woohoo, I'm going to play, we're having fun today with Mike or the team.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
then engage the parents? And then how do I know it also sometimes may take a little time to build that rapport and trust with the kiddos. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think a couple things come to mind with it. One of the most fun back and forth that you can get with a parent is, Johnny is having so much fun. And every time I ask about what's going on, they say, oh, me and Mike are just playing. And they're like, I would love to hear about how this play incorporates into some of the skill building that we are trying to achieve. And yeah, an email like that or a text like that, you start salivating as a clinician. Because kind of how I was saying before, uh, there is no with movement, you really get the inner world of the child. So if a kid thinks that they're just playing, cool. That's awesome. It feels like a safe space in which they can come in at a certain activation level and then through that movement become more regulated. And they come back with certain strategies that you go, oh, yeah, I bet you that will work great when dealing with that lunchroom drama that we're talking about. And then, when working with parents, I think one of my key go to kind of phrases is I will never ask you to do more work. I will ask, maybe we can shift the intention of some of the things that we're doing. A lot of these things that we do in the play space, parents do with their kids all the time. And how do we bring some of that subconscious conscious? And how do we create a space in which, yes, I am very privileged to do some of this work in a very controlled environment that doesn't have the parenting aspect or the role as the disciplinarian, or this is the type of person that I want you to be in 10 years. And through those conversations, you can go, how are you moving at home? What is the intention behind it? And is it a structured play in which there's more pressure? Or what are you guys doing for just motion for the motion's sake of it? um, Conversations like that can be extremely helpful because you really understand who the family is as a whole and where they can implement some of these strategies together as a unit.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
I did have another question come in through the
Yeah.
chat to me. A couple questions. One was if I'm looking for motion play-based therapy in my neighborhood or in my area, what is there anything I should be looking for, like a certain credential or any tips that way?
Yeah, I think if you can find anyone that is polyvagal informed therapy, uh, can be a great way to have someone understand, to know that the person that you're getting understands the nervous system element of what we're dealing with. Uh, Sometimes we can get a little bogged down in the cognitions part of when dealing with emotions. And I think if you're able to have a conversation with whoever you are having that initial intake with, whoever you're reaching out to first, of what does the role of the nervous system play in your practice? How do you implement it? And when you're doing play-based therapy, um, what kind of strategies do you use? What do you like to gravitate towards? I think that can be extremely helpful.
Awesome. And then the follow-up question that that person asked is there a sweet spot as far as age to start this? Or, yeah, that's what it says.
Uh, that's actually a great question. And I think the eclectic nature of working like this, I implement this with all ages. It just looks very differently based on the age of the client. So if I have a 5-year-old coming in, I can expect to do a lot more non-directive, let the client take the lead, and much more of the bodily somatic experience awareness aspect of it. That being said, on the other end of the spectrum, I have clients in their 60s that want to do a walk and talk. And every time after we come back from a walk, they go, "Oh, that feels so much better."
It, it's so true. For me, I exercise um, for my mental health. And no, I hate going in. I really don't like it during it, but afterwards, it's a whole new world. Like it like lifts me.
Yeah.
It is critical to my life development.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. And just
yeah.
like the bilateral stimulation that you do from just the walking and a lot of the back and forth of looking around, like you are activating so many parts of your body that is naturally regulating. Obviously we don't think about it when we go for a walk, but doing that with a combination of more traditional cognitive therapies, it's a great addition.
Okay, and then this was a last question. It's actually my question. So
Okay.
I know it's a silly question, but like we have teens that we work with, and all they talk about, like when we want to do events, is they want to go to rage rooms. Rage rooms. Do you have any opinions on that? I'm serious.
That's a great question. I okay. So if you saw what our office looks like at the end of the night, you would think that we do rage rooms sometimes.
And for
Uh
those who don't know, a rage room is a place where you go, and from what I understand, I haven't been to one, but are things like you smash things.
they
Um,
have a bunch of equipment that, plates and,
yeah,
cheap
TVs or
guitars, TVs,
yeah, yeah.
whatever, and you can really take your aggression out on smashing things. You may have given us a new idea.
I'm telling you, it comes up at every team board meeting when we do. They're like, we're going to do a rage room, Wendy, and I'm like, I'm not sure I know about that, but so I'm asking you, the expert.
Sorry, so what was I got so sidetracked with the rage room
Like,
conversation.
what do
What
you
was the
think of
actual
it? Is there any, have you read anything? Like, are they good for people? Are they not good for
Oh,
people? I mean, I can imagine that it's a mix, because you want to make sure it's safe and you're not, hurting yourself.
absolutely. It's a safe place to dispel some of this emotion, right? So when we're talking about being in a sympathetic state, being frustrated, uh, it is a socially acceptable way to smash things and dispel some of that, fight or flight. That's very much the flight part of fight or flight. So yes, I am all on board for it. Unfortunately, I don't know any places that do it.
Yeah. There are some inpatient hospitals that have some of those rooms. There are some residential facilities that have it. I haven't seen any of this in any therapy practices, but yeah, I think that's an interesting ask, Wendy. I wonder how we would even do something like that. It's a topic that you and I can have, we could
Sounds expensive.
yes. I mean,
Um,
maybe it's like a hose and like hitting like a pillow or something, but I don't know what that. Yeah, we can do
we gotta
that.
look into it.
In
So
our
far,
practice, we
I
have
have not said okay to the teams. I
yeah.
need more information.
In our practice, we do I mean, not it's apples and oranges a little bit, but we do have punching bags that same with the concept of that clockwork activity that I was talking about. I have a couple clients that also want to express themselves in a more physical way and take a baseball bat to our punching bag. And I ask certain yes or no questions in which they can get that aggression out and then fully get back to, you know, the processing that, and then all while in a safe way dispelling some of that energy.
Yes. Okay, so the next question is someone submitted, but I'm going to add to it
Sure.
is well, I guess my first, I guess is, do people come to you and then you suggest the movement play-based therapy, or like how do you know it's right for your kid? Like how do you
Yeah.
know? One,
Yeah.
and two, like you I think you did answer this. When is a good time for a kid um to seek play-based therapy for a kid? I think you did answer that earlier.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can probably answer them
Yeah.
both in one
Yeah.
fell swoop
Yeah.
here. A lot, not all, and I don't even know if I can say a majority, but a lot of the kids that we see, our referral docs all look the same, in which it says we've tried quote unquote traditional therapy and they just don't want to go and they can't attune with it and they're not talking. And I would say, whenever I hear that, my little nerdy spidey senses go off and go, "Oh, this would be perfect for this client." Because what it does is it raises that distress tolerance for the ability to connect. And if you are looking through the lens of movement, you never have to pressure a client to feel so pressured that they're overwhelmed and hate the process. Hey, tell me exactly what happened at school yesterday. What we can do is provide a space for them to show us what happened and how that feeling affects their body and the way that they're processing it, their cognitions. And eventually, once they come to terms with what happened and totally are aware of it, they sit down in the beanbag chair next to me and go, Mike, school was awful yesterday. So I think that's always on my radar. I think it's very similar from a parent's perspective of how do we make therapy more accessible for kids? And if a kid has two options, it's stare at this mug for an hour straight or stand next to it while shooting and having a good time. I think they choose the latter every time.
Awesome. Um, okay, I'm putting in the chat just the Art of Wellbeing website. So if people want to learn more about or local can specifically learn about you. So I
Yeah.
put that in. So thank you so much. Mike, this was interesting and I just appreciate your time and your work and the that there are options out there for kids where traditional therapy is not maybe the best fit. And I wish I knew about this when my kids were younger. Although it's not too late because yeah, it's not too late. Um, in the I want to thank everyone for attending. I put in a very short survey. It takes about a minute. If you have time, fill it out and make sure that we are hitting the mark. So I'm just encouraging folks to do that. And upcoming stuff, I just want to wish everyone happy holidays and thank you for coming to No Shame on You events. Our next bit of programming, our next Feed Your Mind series is not until the end of January. It is going to be on January 30th. It's called Substance Use and Youth Prevention and Pathways. We are partnering with our friends at JCFS Chicago and their teen unit called the Response Center for Teens. For other people local to Chicago, we have No Shame on You has a co-working space in the Ravenswood neighborhood of Chicago, and we are having a wellness day that day where anyone is invited for free, a day to see the co-working, but also to do some different programming. We're going to have a therapy dog, a hot chocolate bar, free massages, yoga with a focus on well-being. Lauren, you should come. You should come because it'd be great.
I want to be.
Great, great networking. And fun. And that's it. And I want to thank everyone for coming and thank you, Mike, for all that you do to make the world a little bit better and easier for us.
Thank you so much. It was great. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
And
Yeah.
finally, this is recorded. I'm going to share it out with the people who attended. We had a lot of folks who registered today who couldn't attend, so I'm going to share it with them, and it will be in our resource library. If you want to share this with any of your contacts or family or friends who are interested in learning more about it, it'll be up in probably about a week.
Hey, Wendy, really quickly, just if anybody has additional questions about the art of well-being or True Mind and Body, I'm going to throw my email in the chat for people to reach out to me, and I'm happy to consult with Mike if they have further questions if I can't answer it. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks,
Talk to you
everyone.
soon. Bye-bye.